Hello everybody and welcome back to my sunroom on this beautiful March day here in East Tennessee. The temperatures have been around 50 degrees Fahrenheit and we're heading into spring. The amount of sunlight in my sunroom, as you see, has increased drastically this past week. There's really too much light in my sunroom right now for my Phalaenopsis orchids. So I've had to adjust some things really quickly so that they don't get sunburned. There's a big difference in the amount of sunlight that I'm getting than just from a few weeks ago. We've gone from a dark winter weather to a gorgeous sunny spring in just a few weeks, and the sunshine is just wonderful. Many of you have asked me about light and what kind of light is best for your orchids. You've also asked about what kind of light that I get in my sunroom. Part of my sunroom gets eastern light or morning sunlight, and the other part gets western light. It's about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, so you can tell which is which. The left side of your screen gets the eastern morning sunlight, and then the right side gets the western, the mid-afternoon or evening sunlight. Usually the trees in my backyard disperse the western light that comes into this room, but right now there are no leaves on the trees, so I'm getting full western sunlight, and that's too much for my phals over there on the right-hand corner. So the afternoon light needs to be dispersed for these orchids to grow well, especially my phals. So until the leaves grow back, I have to provide temporary shading. And I wanted to show you all how I do that because I know that many of you grow orchids in windows that receive a lot of sunlight. And here's how I shade my sunroom temporarily without hanging curtains or shade cloth that I don't need during most of the year. Once the leaves come out on the trees, then I have the right amount of sunlight back here. So I use tissue paper and I tape it to the windows. I've used this cute springtime pattern that looks like spring so that you all can see what I've done. And this paper it makes me happy. My niece found it for me and I love it. Of course, you can use regular tissue paper, just regular white tissue paper, or any pastel color paper that you like. If 1 ply doesn't give you enough shade, you can build it up. You can use 2 or 3 plies, and you can build it however you need to adjust the shading for your sunroom. And I'm often asked, how do I know if my orchids, especially my Phalaenopsis orchids, are getting enough light or too much light? The first thing I do is I put my hand about 12 inches or 30 centimeters between the phal's leaves and the sunlight, like so. And if you see a very sharp shadow, then that's too much light. If you see it slightly dispersed, then that's good. If you don't see any shadow at all, that's not enough light. The next thing I do, I feel the leaves. If they're cool or just barely warm to the touch, then they're fine. If they're very warm, then they're getting too much light. Another thing to keep in mind is that phals like magic art that have huge thick leaves. Those leaves are probably about 18 inches. Yes, that is a huge wingspan that orchid has. Those leaves can't take as much sunlight as one with smaller, thinner leaves like my miniature Phalaenopsis orchids can. But I don't want you to have the indication that this corner is dark. In about 30 minutes, this area of the sunroom is going to be flooded with light, and it's going to get plenty of dispersed light. even through that tissue paper. So miniature Phalaenopsis orchids can take more sunlight than a regular size Phalaenopsis can. These receive morning sunlight, plus as you see, they're receiving dispersed afternoon sunlight, which is just perfect for them. But you still want to check on your miniature Phalaenopsis orchids as well. I'm going to show you what happened last week with one of my miniatures so that you can learn my mistake later in the video. My dendrobiums do really well in these eastern-facing windows with that dispersed afternoon sunlight, and my Cattleya thrives in western sunlight. They can handle more light. So what can you do when your orchids are getting too much light in front of your windows in the spring and the summer? You can move them further away from your window. If you have curtains or blinds on your windows, you can close them either all the way or partially throughout the warmer part of the day. Or you can use the tissue paper on windows in your house that get too much sun, like I have here. Just remember, eastern-facing windows are ideal to grow orchids in. Early morning to noon sunlight is cooler, and orchids thrive on it. I never met an orchid that didn't do well in an eastern-facing window. They all love morning sunlight. So here's my story that I mentioned earlier in the video. You all can learn from my mistake. This is my story about Little Gem Stripes. She's had a hard year. I'm going to show you what happened. First off, all of her buds blasted a few months ago. We had some really cold weather when she started blooming, and I hadn't moved the tables away from the window ledges yet. So she was in the corner of the sunroom, and it got cold enough in front of the windows to affect all the buds on 2 spikes. So she lost all of her buds on both spikes. So I didn't want to place her back in that same corner. So I moved her temporarily to my kitchen in front of an eastern-facing window. And it got really hot one day. It went from very cold to very warm, like 70 degrees Fahrenheit one day. I didn't provide enough shade for her. So she was sunburned before I knew it. And this is what sunburn looks like. Just keeping it real on my channel here. Want to help you all so you learn from my mistakes so you don't make the same mistakes. And as I've said before, when you grow orchids, sometimes things happen despite all your best efforts. It's like I turned my back on her for an hour and this was done. So my goal now is to give her plenty of dispersed light, and I'm going to fertilize her well so that she'll grow plenty of leaves, and you won't be seeing that sun damage anymore. But once the damage is done, it's done. But when she has new leaves, she'll look a lot happier, and I'll be a lot happier. So my advice to you all today is to check on your orchids and make sure they're all in a good place in your grow space. Springtime light can be quite warm, so provide shading for them when you need to. Also, if there's something different around your grow area, take that into account too. We took down some Jack and the Beanstalk bushes last fall. They were huge and they had grown to the sky. And that has affected the amount of light in this sunroom as well. So this spring and summer, I'll have to keep that in mind and adjust my temporary tissue paper shading when I need to. And I'd like to welcome all my new subscribers and beginner growers to my channel. I've been working on new playlists on my channel so that you all can access information easier. I've started a beginner orchid growing playlist, so if you're a beginner or if you know anybody who has recently bought their first orchid or you simply want to brush up on your growing skills, it's available. I'm going to put a link to that playlist in the description box below. I hear from so many of you who share my videos and my channel, and I appreciate that more than you know. You all truly are my international orchid family, and I would really like to welcome you to my channel if you're new. All of you are such a blessing to me. As I read through my comment section, it really does make my day. Thank you all so much for your friendship and for allowing me to be a part of your lives. And before I end the video, I would love to say the blessing over you and your families and your orchids. The Lord bless you and keep you. Make His face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn His face towards you and give you and your families His shalom peace. You all make it a great day, and we'll see you next time.